This is part 2 of the lecture for week number 11, Managing or Administering a Smaller Membership Church. I want to begin with that final item from my list because our text, Administration in the Church, Small Membership Church, tells us that the most important dimension of administering the smaller church is how the pastor manages him or herself. It is important because smaller membership churches are often very laid back, embracing changes, even changes needed slowly, and fitting the work of the church into their lives as they can, but often without any real sense of urgency. So I want to read something to you from Tyson, assuming that not all of you have the book. Tyson says this: "No one likes to be embarrassed by forgetting appointments, double booking, or losing important records. Yet most of us can say these embarrassing things have happened to us. In this chapter, we will find a few easy but powerful steps for developing a clear, comprehensive, and accurate system to manage time, appointments, and records, even if we don't have the spiritual gift of administration, which he would say most of us don't. Nothing communicates the genuineness of pastoral care as eloquently as being present at the right time for surgeries, meetings, and speaking engagements, or remembering to inquire about the results of important medical appointments, job interviews, and so on. Nor does anything communicate the failure to care as eloquently as 'I'm terribly sorry, I forgot.' The simple system shared below, which I'm going to summarize for you, will ensure that forgetting will seldom happen, if ever. But you need to be warned, if you don't function or practice it this way, it may not have the same benefits that you would hope it would have." Excuse me. First one is managing your time. Every one of us needs to have a primary calendar. It's the calendar that may be on a PDA, it may be on your phone, it may be in your computer, or you may still be a person who carries around a pocket notebook. But you need to have a primary calendar, and you need to have only one primary calendar. That's the calendar that, for example, that you write down every appointment, and you write it down on one calendar. If you don't make a practice of writing it on that one calendar, it's too easy for it not to make it into the different aspects of your planning that occur. And you always need to have that calendar with you. I realize that you may not always have that calendar with you, particularly since I tend to use a written daily planner, which I'll show you copies of in a file a little while at the end of this class. You need to know that if you don't have it with you, then you need to adopt the practice of saying to someone, "Would you email me with this information?" And be very honest. Trust me, I may forget this because of so many other things that are going on right now, but I don't want to forget it. So would you email me? And a big rule is no verbal commitments that you may not remember later. But if you make a verbal commitment, find that primary calendar and get it into it. Secondly, is you need to have a daily planning time. In that sense, it's good to have a second planner that has those appointments on it, but then a set of notes of what you need to do to be ready for that appointment. And it may be a simple set of notes, which we'll talk about in just a few moments, but it helps to have a planner that is attached to the things that have to be accomplished in order to be ready for that appointment. I would suggest there are 2 times that you look at your planner because you have to have a daily planning time. One is before you go to bed at night to kind of sort out what is going to happen, have a clear picture of that. You do that because sometimes you have things early in the morning which you can forget in the rush of the day, or you want to do it the very first thing in the morning. But whenever you do that, you need to check your notes for what needs to be happened before that appointment, which is why we have often been well served by a prioritized to-do list. One of the advantages of a to-do list at all is as you go through the day and check them off, you have a better sense of what you accomplished than the vague sense that I have more left to do. And I've been in there, trust me. And I'm one of those persons that tends to have multiple responsibilities, and that prioritized to-do list begins to help me focus on what really has to be accomplished that day that cannot be deferred to another day. But a prioritized to-do list tends to be more detailed, and as you will see from my own planner, which I will attach, I do that. I even color code those different aspects, but I try to assign to those days what's going to have to happen that day that may need to be realized on later days. But a simple way to do it, to prioritize to-do list, is have a list marked day, Tuesday, March the 13th. List all the things that you know have to be accomplished that day or need to be accomplished that day, and then assign A, B, or C priority. Be very careful about that. Make sure that only A's get A's, only B's get B's, and only C's get C's. And then go through and look at your calendar and matched with your appointments, think about how much time it's going to take to accomplish those things, those tasks between appointments. Assign a time to them, a reasonable estimation of time. Assign the time to the A's first. And frankly, if you get through the day and there's no time left for the B's or C's get pushed to another day. If you don't accomplish the A's in the day, you will probably not have a fruitful day. And my other suggestion, do the A's first and do them in the priority order that you have given them. In other words, A's still have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then there's filing. Filing is critical to organization because too many of us, our filing is just a pile of stuff on top of the desk. Or at one time I had a pile on top of my desk, which I dropped into a box on the side of my desk, and then I dropped into another box on the side of the desk, and once I had 3 boxes filled, I threw away the third box because it was just too late or not necessary. But suspense filing is a system for filing information until you need it. In other words, you don't try to go keep every piece in one place and have to go through it every time you're trying to plan. But you need to know when you need to see it. And you need to assign it, for example, a date and a place on your to-do list where to find it. So let's say that you're going to have a meeting of the elders next Monday. Therefore, you're going to have your certain items that have been collecting for you, like reports and business, and you put them, and you want to have them available for next Monday, but you don't really need them until next Monday. So you put them in some file that just simply says next Monday. All right. And when you get ready for next Monday, you go there. But it's all there. You don't put it in a file that has 3 other days involved in it. Even on your appointment calendar, you might write a note that says, check file A. Okay? Or you simply need to have a file, as I said, that is filed by date when I need them. Or you just may need a note of where you've placed it. It's in the upper right-hand drawer. Got it? And then you put it in the upper right-hand drawer and forget it until you need it. Some people also use priority files, what we call red, green, and yellow files. Red files are things that must be accomplished today. Green files are things that must be accomplished in the next 2 days. Yellow files are things that have to be accomplished in the next week. And maybe you have a blue file that just says, as soon as I can. But when you get a piece of paper or when you have a note or something that you're going to use for your work, file it. Tremendous waste of time. A tremendous source of disorganization and lack of preparedness for something critical is not to have a filing. And you complete each thing on the proper day, or you reassign it. Now, there are at least 4 other ways of keeping records that will probably help you administer the smaller church, and that is, 1, to have a correspondence file. And that correspondence file may be correspondence when you first receive it, all right? And then once you have written a response, a second file that says awaiting a response, okay? Or a third file that says finished file. And when you have time, you put in a bigger file. Second are project files. You have some key things that happen in the church all the time. You're regularly going to them, so put those things in a file that's clearly labeled worship planning, meetings with council president, vacation Bible school. You follow me. Because so much of your leadership in a smaller church is relational, it is good to have a pastoral contact record. And that record could be just a notebook where you simply list March the 13th, visited Mary Smith, March the 13th, phone contact with Joe Jones, and then any notes that follow up with it. And then when someone comes back and says, Pastor, I haven't heard from you in a while. You can go back and tell them, yes, you may have forgotten, but this is when I did it. Or you may review it from time to time, knowing that there are people that you need to be contacting or in contact with, and the file tells you clearly how long it's been since that contact. And some pastors even keep a daily conversation file. It's just a simple set of notes dated that say, this is who I spoke to, this is what we spoke about, and this is what the follow-up is. Any one of those files will help you. Now, filing like this and planning like this may seem onerous to you, but since you are the critical player of the hub of the system, you need to have one. And especially it's important if you're bivocational or have diverse responsibilities within the church. Critical. We're going to stop here, and we're going to take on the last parts in just a few moments.